عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. For the hastening of the reappearance of the Master, the awaited Savior, the Avenger, Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Askari, Fidah wa Arwah al-Alameen, recite aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The saga of Ashura, the story of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and his legendary martyrdom, an epic battle between the epitome of evil with the personification and embodiment of good. This saga is composed of 3 chapters. The first is what led to the Battle of Karbala, all the events preceding the confrontation and showdown between the small band of Imam Hussain and the army of Yazid ibn Muawiyah. The events that began from Imam Hussain departing the holy city of Medina toward Mecca, and from Mecca toward Kufa, culminating in the confrontation in Karbala. Though of course one can argue that the Battle of Karbala did not begin from the holy city of Medina. Rather, the events that led to the unspeakable, heart-rending massacre of Karbala began a long, long time ago. They began on a dreadful day that Lady Zeynep refers to on the day of Ashura. She makes an enigmatic statement which requires many lectures to unpack. It requires a lot of analysis. And the evidence in support of this statement is abundant. But it is, at face value, a very enigmatic and cryptic statement that she makes. It's a simple reference for those who are willing to remove their blinders and look at history critically, for those that are willing to question presumptions that they have grown up with. Those who are willing to discover the truth rather than be blindsided by ignorance and by years, decades, and even centuries of lies and concoctions. Lady Zeynep gives us just enough to recognize the truth of this massacre and this tragedy. What does she say? The day of Ashura happened to be on a Saturday, and yet Lady Zeynep refers to the body of Abu Abdullah on that day, saying, بِأَبِي مَنْ قُتِلَ يَوْمَ الْإِثْنَيْنِ, may my father be ransomed for the one who was killed on a Monday, which makes no sense, unless, of course, you're willing to dig a little deeper and find out exactly what day was Monday, what happened on that dreadful day in which the Holy Messenger of God was accused of being delirious, and that the Quran was all we needed, the statements of the Prophet were no longer necessary. And then under a shed, a group of people got together to appoint their own leader. A fight over power and authority breaks out, which leads to a series of events that ultimately culminate in Karbala. And that argument can and should be made at the right place, at the right time. However, this is the first chapter of Ashura. The second chapter starts with the murder of Abu Abdullah al Hussain, and it only goes on for a day, or perhaps less than a day. And that's the chapter that deals with the events in the immediate aftermath of Ashura. It deals with the unspeakable, heinous crimes committed against the family of Abu Abdullah al Hussain, and the things that those monstrous creatures showed that humanity at its lowest point was capable of crimes that the wildest beasts would never consider doing. When humans abandon their ideals and their values, when humans feel that they have impunity and can act in a manner without consequences, that their actions have no repercussions, humans become worse than the wildest animals. And that is something that was displayed, put on full display, in fact, on the day of Ashura. And that's the second chapter. The third chapter begins with the 11th of Muharram. And all of these chapters, by the way, are equally important. But the third one begins on the 11th, and it covers the journey of the caravan, the women, the children, the orphans, the severed heads, the lances, the swords, the spears, from Karbala to Kufa and from Kufa to Sham. Historians have written about these three phases, these three chapters. Some have in fact said, and this is something for another time as well, that Yazid's biggest mistake was not so much the murder of Abu Abdullah al Hussain, but rather the fact that his insane euphoria, the feeling of victory and defeat and revenge, led him to take the women and the children and parade them around the nation. That was his biggest mistake, because in doing so he gave a platform for Lady Zeynep alayhi salam and Imam Zayn al-Abidin and even the little Ruqayyah to be able to express their grief and spread news of the massacre of Ashura far and wide. As far away as Raqqa, as far away as Akka in Palestine, as far away as Aleppo and Sham. All of these different cities and towns that the caravan passed through became centers of mourning for the tragedy of Imam Hussain. Yazid's insanity led him to this grave miscalculation. Now, of course, that's not what I want to focus on. Tonight I want to focus on the second chapter. Scholars usually say that the eve of the 11th of Muharram tonight was much more painful on the family of Rasulullah than the eve of the 10th of Muharram. At least on the 10th of Muharram they still had Abbas to guard the camp. They still had Ali al-Akbar. Qasim was just a prepubescent boy. Ali al-Asghar was just a child who was thirsty. And above all, Abu Abdullah al-Hussain was still there. On the eve of Ashura, it was scary, it was terrifying, it was dreadful. But everyone was together. There was fear of the unknown. But the unknown came crashing down on the eve of the 11th of Muharram. It was this night that showed Lady Zeynep and the women and the children that indeed these people understood no limits to there were no limits to their cruelty. There were no boundaries to their barbarism. One thing I want to say before I get to the actual events of the eve of the 11th and the aftermath of the massacre in Ashura is that, brothers and sisters, I think this is important, that we appreciate the fact that Imam Hussain was one of the greatest miracles of Rasulullah. Imam Hussain was the true manifestation of the message of Islam, which is why it's so painful when you go on social media and you type in the word Ashura to see what people are talking about, what is trending out there in cyberspace. It is so painful to see that the vast majority are either talking about Ashura being an outright festivity and celebration. I was traveling through one of these Muslim countries and I saw a big, giant billboard on the main highway that said, Ashura yawmu farahin wa surur. Ashura is a day of happiness and festivities. I saw this with my own two eyes. And so you have those kinds of people. The ones who consider this day an opportunity to express joy and happiness, which is a clear and unequivocal inheritance of Bani Umayyah. You know where this is tied to. You know where it's connected to. You know that this culture was ingrained and inculcated in these ignorant fools by the tyrants of Bani Umayyah, whose willingness to stomp over the legacy of Rasulullah led them to completely obfuscate and even destroy the true message of Islam by taking an unspeakable tragedy and turning it into a festivity, and encouraging people to engage in these festivities. The city of Sham, remember, was adorned. It took them 3 days to prepare for the festivities that accompanied the caravan of grieving women and orphan children. So that's one group of people. Then you have those who have no idea what Ashura is, but they've heard bits and pieces from here and there. And they might try to balance things out by saying, well, yes, it's a great day. Also, as a footnote, Imam Hussain was killed. And let's not forget to condemn the Shia for their commemorations, for their unorthodox ways, for their self-flagellation, from beating the chest to everything else. It's a moment for them to play the sectarian card and to attack the Shia and to use this opportunity to demonize a community of 400 million plus people around the world. People who are trying to do nothing but send their condolences to Rasulullah. I was saying to someone the other day, to a good friend, that imagine if the Holy Messenger of Allah was with us today. He would be the one standing at the door receiving the mourners, because this is his majlis. If Fatima al-Zahra was around, the daughter of the Messenger of God, she'd be the one to receive condolences. This is her gathering, her mourning. This is her son that we are grieving for. And so, the amount of ignorance that's out there, the blissful ignorance, is truly nauseating, brothers and sisters. And of course we can, and we should in fact, blame the tyrants and the despots for creating this culture, for perpetuating these ideas. But we're also to blame to a certain extent, in that most of the time our gatherings, our mourning for Imam al Hussain, are confined to these four walls, in our own centers, in our own mosques. I've always said that many of you either go to school or college or work, and you have work mates and you have people that you study with, classmates and whatnot. Bring them to these gatherings. You've got nothing to lose, and we've got nothing to hide. Everything we say is perfectly in line with what the upright nature of humanity dictates. Everything we do is very easily explained. I remember there was a Jewish woman in London many years back who attended one of the majalis of Imam al Hussain, and she came in, I believe it was in the middle of the masa'ib where they were reciting the eulogy of Imam al Hussain. She walked in, she looked at the mourners, those who were grieving for the Imam, and she said something that kind of just stuck in my head since then. She goes, "This completes it for me. This brings it all home, brings home the idea that Imam al Hussain stood for something." Reverend John Shuck, another good friend that I was recently introduced to, who's a priest who got the chance to travel to Karbala just last Arba'een. He came back telling the audience, he gave a lecture, he gave a talk, and he said, you know, just like he said, he pointed to me, he said, just like he said, when I went to Karbala, I discovered Jesus there. I saw the qualities of Christ mirrored in the pilgrims and those who serve the pilgrims in Karbala, from Najaf to Karbala, from Basra to Karbala, from Baghdad to Karbala. All these people, when they get introduced to the legend of Imam al Hussain, when they get to know the companions of Imam al Hussain. I also met a college professor from New York. He's a professor of Islamic studies there, who became a Muslim and a follower of the Ahlul Bayt thanks to the story of Hur. Not even Imam al Hussain himself, not even Ali al-Akbar, not Qasim, not Azhar, but Hur. And so we're partly to blame, brothers and sisters. Let's introduce our friends and the people that we encounter, people that we care about. Because we care about them, let's bring them to these gatherings. Of course, now Muharram is past, but Arba'een is coming. There's always other occasions. There's always other resources. There are books, articles, videos that you can share, and you should share, so that we have at least fulfilled our obligation towards Imam al Hussain. And that's a critical point, brothers and sisters. The fact that we participate in the mourning of Imam al Hussain is great, but that's only a first step. The second step is that we preach this message to other people, evangelize. I'm not saying proselytize. I'm not saying go with the intention of converting everyone to your path, though of course that would be beautiful to see, because again, everything we do and say is perfectly compatible with the human intellect and the human nature. But at least evangelize, speak up, tell the truth, tell others about Hussain. Because, and I reiterate this point, Imam al Hussain is the most perfect embodiment of the message of Rasulullah, which is probably one of the interpretations of the famous prophetic tradition, Husaynun minni wa ana min Hussain. Hussain is from me, which of course is understandable. Hussain is the grandson of the Prophet. Without the Prophet, Hussain wouldn't be there. He has not only the Prophet's genes, not only does the Prophet's blood course through the veins of Aba Abdullah, those veins that were severed in Karbala. Not only that, but Hussain gets everything from his grandfather. But then when the Prophet says, wa ana min Hussain, and I am from Hussain, one of the interpretations is this, is that if you wanted to introduce someone to Imam al Hussain, rather, if you wanted to introduce Islam to someone, all you have to do is to introduce them to Abu Abdullah al Hussain. You want to know what true Islam is about? You want to know the personal traits and characteristics that Islam tries to ingrain in the human psyche? Look at Hussain on the day of Ashura. Look at Hussain as reflected in Dua Arafah. Look at Hussain and his stances and his treatment with his own enemies. Look at how Imam al-Hussain, as they were going towards Karbala, historians say that they came across a spring. Listen to this, brothers and sisters. Imam al-Hussain came across a spring of water. So he told his companions to go and fill up every container, every vessel, every cup, everything they had with the water. Which makes perfect sense. You're in the desert, you're traveling. The more water you take with you, the better it is and the safer you'll be. So they all filled their containers. Then the Imam said, go back and see if there are any other containers that you didn't find. Anything else that you can use to carry more water. They went back, they found a few more. They came, filled them up with water. Then the Imam said for the third time, go back in case you find something, a water skin, anything of that nature, fill it up. The companions, by the way, not one of them asked, Ya Abu Abdullah, we don't need this much water. We have all these service stations, if you like. We have all these places where we can stop by and drink. At that point in time, there was no indication that they would face the thirst of their lives. But no one objected. Everyone did exactly as the Imam instructed. They went, they filled every single thing. By this time, they had quite a lot of water with them. Then when they reached Karbala, the army of Hur came with 1,000 soldiers. And they were thirsty. So the Imam said, go and feed every last single one of them. Quench their thirst. They went and quenched their thirst. The Imam then said, وَرَشِّفُ الْخَيْلَ تَرْشِيفًا, even feed their horses. One of those men, he narrates the story. He says, I was the last person to join the rest of the party. I was kind of left behind a little bit. And so when I arrived, I was so thirsty and parched, I was going to die. It was Imam al-Hussain himself came and fed me and quenched my thirst. He was one of the people who on the day of Ashura attacked Abu Abdullah al-Hussain. Tell these people, tell the world about this, because you'll never find any such legend. As I said before, no creative writer, no literary genius, no novelist has ever been able to produce a story as moving and as beautiful and as great and as tragic and as painful as the legend of Hussain and the Battle of Karbala. Tell the world about this. So Imam al-Hussain reflected what true Islam is all about. It's about bravery. It's about courage. It's about resistance to evil. It's about generosity. It's about compassion. It's about love. It's about all of these noble characteristics. On the other hand, look at the camp of Yazid, who embodied the very worst, as we said earlier. So much so that it just doesn't add up. How people could be so deeply evil. How they could display such cruelty. I mean, you could have just left the 6-month-old orphan to die and he would have died. You could have deprived him of water so he would die of dehydration. But to slaughter him from ear to ear, why would you do this? You could have killed Ali al-Akbar, but to attack him and sever him into pieces, to mutilate the body, why would you do this? You could have left Imam al-Hussain to die on his own. 1,900 wounds from head to toe. The grief, the thirst, the heat, all of these factors could have killed Imam al-Hussain. Why deprive him of water? Why refuse to even give him a drop, in spite of him asking you to? I remember I had a discussion with someone many years ago who said, no, Imam Hussain would never ask. He would never actually stoop to that level where he'd be asking them for water. I said, first of all, there's nothing wrong with asking for water. It's not shameful, it's not humiliating. Maybe asking for food is different because you can wait. But when it comes to water, there's nothing wrong with it. Secondly, Imam al-Hussain is trying to demonstrate, not only to the world at the time, but for every subsequent generation until the day of reckoning, that I even asked them for water prior to departing this world, and they refused. Not only did they refuse, one of them even shouted, لن تنال الماء لن تشرب الماء حتى ترد الحامية. You won't drink a drop of it until you enter the hellfire. They could have eliminated their enemies in any number of ways, but to do so like this shows you the stark contrast between the camp of faith, the camp of God, the camp of Rasulullah, the camp of Islam, and the camp that abandoned all of its values, that felt they could act with complete impunity. Which is why Imam Hussain said to them, he even said this on the day of Ashura. He said, Ya Shi'ata Ali Abi Sufyan, in kuntum la takhafun al-ma'ad, in lam yakun lakum deen, wa kuntum la takhafun al-ma'ad, fakunu ahraran fi dunyakum. If you have no religion or values or anything, and you have no fear of the day of reckoning and judgment, then at least be free men. Fight me like men. Why attack my camp so as to distract me so that you could then attack me? Why do these things? Which is when Shimr said to him, Ma taqulu ya ibn Fatima. What are you talking about? The Imam said, Uqatilukum wa tuqatiluni. I am fighting you, you're fighting me. There's only one of me and there's tens of thousands of you. Come and attack me, not my family. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much tonight. Let's go to Karbala and see what happened in the aftermath of the unspeakable crime of killing Abu Abdullah Hussain. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayka ya Mazloom. Assalamu alayka ya Gharib Karbala. يا عطشان يا عريان Aba Abdullah al-Hussain, before leaving for the battle, came to his sister Zeynep. He asked her for an old worn out garment to wear under his clothes. Zeynep asked, why would you want that? An undergarment that's worn out, that's torn up, that's worthless? Why do you want it? Zeynep couldn't believe that they would do the things that they did on the day of Ashura. Abu Abdullah al-Hussain is wearing something worthless, lest they come and try and ransack it and take it off of his body. Allahu Akbar. And yet that's exactly what they did. Ya Sahib al-Amr, ajarak Allah. After the murder of Abu Abdullah, they did several things. The first was what's called as-salb. They attacked the body of Abu Abdullah al-Hussain to ransack him, to steal everything he had. They stole his shield and sword. They stole his armor. Then there were more people wanting to steal things, so they began taking everything that was left. one of them saw that Abu Abdullah was wearing a ring. He tried to pull out the ring. Aywa waylah wa musibatah. When he realized he can't take it off, he took out his dagger. Wa waylah ya Abu Abdullah wa madlumah. Another one came. There are things that I can't unpack, I can't say from the minbar. Imam Zaman's heart is bleeding tonight for what they did to his grandfather Abu Abdullah. But there are subtle hymns, even in Ziyarat al-Nahiyah. You find that there are subtle hymns as to what they did to the Imam. They came and they stole his clothes, including the worn out undergarment, leaving the body of Abu Abdullah on the sand under the scorching heat of the sun. Rahim Allah man nada wa Hussaina wa madlumah. When all of that ended, then Umar ibn Sa'd acted on the instructions of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, who had told him, after you kill Hussein, ثُمَّ اطْحَنْ ظَهْرَ الْحُسَيْنِ وَصَدْرَهُ, then you have to crush his chest and his back. He said, I want 10 horsemen. I want the horses to be fresh, not tired. I want them to have shoes that are sharp. They brought 10 of them. They said, we looked at the 10 men. They were all born out of wedlock. Each one of them was waladul zina. They came and began running over the body of Abu Abdullah. Some have said, and there is an indication for this in some of the ziyarat, that in fact the running over the body began while Abu Abdullah was still alive. Aywa waylah wa musibatah. They trampled over the chest of Abu Abdullah. Then when they were done, they said, now turn the body over and trampled upon it once again. They say that Zeynep was in the tent. She was shielding the women and the children when she heard strange sounds that resembled pots breaking glass. She came to Imam Zayn al-Abidin saying, what are those sounds I can hear? The Imam said, that is not glass, that is the bones of my father's chest. Those are the ribs of the grandson of Rasulullah. Aywa Hussaina wa Ghariba wa Madluma. After trampling on the body of Abu Abdullah, now was time for the third part of the tragedy of the afternoon of Ashura. And it's when Umar ibn Sa'd said, ambush his tents, attack his women and children, روعوا النساء والأطفال. Make sure you frighten them. Be as cruel and as barbaric as you can. I don't know if you've ever been in a place where there's a fire that breaks out in the kitchen, perhaps. I have seen how women and children, especially the children, scream in fright. Suddenly these women and children were in the tent and they saw the tents burning around them. أحرقوا بيوت الظالمين, they said. Burn down the houses of the oppressors. They burned all the essence, Zeynep came to Imam Zayn al-Abidin. She said to him, what do we do? Ya baqiyat al-awwaleen wa ya thumalat al-akhirin. In other words, Zeynep is asking, could a miracle happen right now? Could this come to an end? Could this be all a dream? But no, Imam Zayn al-Abidin told her, alaykunna bil firar. Go run for your lives. Women and children running in every direction. Do you know why this is hard? Ya mu'mineen, ya mu'aleen. The Imams were very sensitive about their women and their children. Amir al-Mu'mineen once gave an entire sermon calling everyone to jihad, saying we should all go out and fight. Why, ya Amir al-Mu'mineen? What's happened? The Imam said, because a Christian woman has had her golden jewelry stripped from her by the mercenaries of Muawiyah. Busr ibn Arqat has attacked a village where there are some Christian and Jewish women, and they've scared them, and now we must all go and fight. And if we die upon hearing this, the Imam said, then we wouldn't be anything wrong. Now I ask you, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you go to war for a Christian woman whose jewelry has been stolen. Where were you on the day of Ashura when they ransacked the tents of your children, your women? Children running away not knowing what to do, and those vile animals, each one trying to get a piece of whatever they can, running after these girls. One of them says that as I stood there watching in shock, speechless, not knowing what to do, suddenly one of those horsemen noticed me and he began charging in my direction. How fast can a little girl run in the desert on her feet? So I ran, and then he used the back of his spear. He hit me, I fell to the ground. And then when I woke up, she fell unconscious. When I woke up, he came towards me. This is Lady Sukaina. She says he came, noticed I had a pair of earrings. Instead of taking them off, he grabbed them and pulled them. He cut both my ears off, leaving me to bleed on the battlefield. أيوة ويلاه ومصيبته يا حجة ابن الحسن. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. This has never happened. Imam Zayn al-Abidin was asked, why do you cry? How long will you continue to mourn? Is it not true that you see martyrdom as an honor? The Imam said, we see martyrdom as an honor. But when have you heard that our women and children would be attacked and taken captive? One of them says, I saw one of the girls of Abu Abdullah with her dress had caught fire. So I ran after her trying to put out the fire, but she was too scared to stop. She ran and she ran until I got to her. She said to me, who are you? Are you a friend or an enemy? He said, I am neither. I am just here as a witness. So then she said to me, have you ever read the Quran in your life? I said, yes. She said, have you read the verse that says, وَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ? Don't treat the orphans with harshness. He said, yes, I have. She said, فَأَنَا يَتِيمَةُ الْحُسَيْنِ. I'm an orphan, but I'm not just any orphan. I am the orphan of Abu Abdullah. Please don't do anything. Hamid ibn Muslim says, he said, when the dust settled, I then went to Umar ibn Sa'd. I told him, do you want to kill these women and children, or do you want to take them as captives? He said, no, I want to take them as captives. He said, if that's the case, then give them some water before more of them die. Some have said, including Sayyid Muhammad Kadhim al-Qazwini, a scholar from Karbala, he said that 17 young children of Aba Abdullah and his camp, 17 children died in the aftermath of his murder. Some were trampled upon by the horses. Some of them died of thirst. So he said, if you're going to keep them alive, then give them some water, you animal. He said, fine, take some water to them. So they took a vessel, they took a cup, and then they went and gave it to Sayyidah Zeynep. When Zeynep saw the cup, she refused to drink. She gave it to the next girl or orphan who was there. When she took it, she also refused to drink, each one handing the cup over to the next one, until it was the turn for a 3-year-old daughter of Aba Abdullah. When she got the cup, they thought that she would drink, but instead she held the cup and hurried toward the desert. Where are you going? What are you doing? She said, I heard my father say, وَحَقِّ جَدِّي أَنَا عَطْشَانٌ. I swear in my grandfather's name I am thirsty. Abba, Abba, أَتَيْتُ لَكَ مِنْ مَاءٍ. Father, I have water for you. أيوة حسينة ومظلومة وغريبة وعطشانة. Allahu Akbar. It was then all over. Inshallah, I won't take too much of your time. But when the sun sets on the day of Ashura, it was now Zeynep's turn. She now had to carry the mantle of Hussain. She had made a promise to Aba Abdullah to look after his orphan children. Zeynep, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا Zeynep. Jabal al-Sabr, she's been called the mountain of patience. How Zeynep could go through all of this and survive, only Allah knows. So now it was Zeynep's turn. She tried to calm everyone down. She went and tried to put them to sleep. You have a long journey ahead of you. Get some sleep. And so Zeynep's role was now to go from person to person, as each one would say, Amma Zeynep, ayna walidi. Another one would say, ayna akhi. Another one would say, ayna walidi. And she'd help calm them down and put them to sleep. When she finished all of that, then she heard a cry from outside of the tents. Let me read you a poem that explains what happened. Zeynep heard a sound from outside. Zeynep settled into the night, only to hear a faint lullaby. You know where I'm going with this, right? Only to hear a faint lullaby. Faint lullaby. Even with a back that's now bent, she went out behind the tents. It's a mother, it is Rubab, a lioness seeking her cub. Allahu Akbar. What does Rubab say to Zeynep? Zeynep, I've been near and far. I've been looking, but can't seem to find my Asrar. May Karbala forever burn. What did he do to the family of Rasulullah? May Karbala forever burn. Zeynep is consoling Rubab. Your boy is gone, he won't return. Abdullah's gone, Abdullah's gone. Say it with me. Abdullah's gone, Abdullah's gone, Abdullah's gone.
Brothers, we will have the Latmiya inshallah.